What's up, Bengals fans? Welcome to a new episode of the Bengals Insiders YouTube page. I'm Braeden Guthrie. Along with me is Ethan. And today we're talking about free agency, and it's been a whirlwind. For most of the day, it's been very depressing, but literally less than 10 minutes before we started the recording, the Bengals made a big move. So we'll start with for the most part, positive. Bengals signed Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $60 million contract, $32 million guaranteed in the first 2 years. And for last season for the Saints, he had 13 and a half sacks. We'll talk about more where those sacks came in a minute. And he was either third or fourth in the NFL with sacks. So that definitely is something bright. So, Ethan, what are your thoughts on this signing?
Well, I mean, I'm a little surprised off at first. We kind of wait the whole day. Personally, I was thinking, maybe we might just have to wait till tomorrow to see some Bengals news. And then kind of out of nowhere, around a half an hour or so ago, we started to hear the Bengals name come up in Trey Hendrickson talks. It had been, clear that a couple teams there was definitely some serious interest for Trey Hendrickson on the open market. And now he comes in, and the Bengals have paid the big bucks to sign him. 4 years, $60 million. Personally, unfortunately, we do have to also report about a loss of one of our Bengals free agents. Defensive end Carl Lawson has signed with the New York Jets. 3 years, $45 million. So similar monetary deals, and that's where I start to wonder. We signed Trey Hendrickson for $32 million guaranteed, 4 years, $60 million, and Lawson goes to New York on a 3-year, $45 million deal. So part of me begins to question, how much exactly did the Bengals offer Carl Lawson? And was it either not enough, or did Carl Lawson not want to come back to Cincinnati? It's a very interesting thing, and it's something that we're going to have to discuss in probably the next couple weeks when more and more info starts to come out about free agents and why they made their decisions. It'll be interesting to see why Carl Lawson, did not re-sign with Cincinnati, especially after, all the discussion about, it looks like he may go back there, et cetera. It was kind of rumblings around the league that he was going to stay home, and instead he signs with New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of speculation that he doesn't like Lou Anarumo. And on the Bengals Boots podcast with Jay Morrison and Paul Danner Jr., he went on, he said people were overreacting, but even if that was the case, I don't think Lawson would go on a podcast and say, no, fuck this guy, I have no interest in him, because that would just look bad to other teams. It probably wouldn't make that much of a difference, but that could put red flags on the character concerns. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but I personally heard from a source, I don't know how accurate it is, that he doesn't exactly have the best relationship with Lou Anarumo. As you pointed earlier, Hendrickson and Lawson are getting the same APY, so it also makes you think Bengals signed Hendrickson 2 or 3 hours after Lawson gets signed. So you almost have to wonder if the Bengals kind of got desperate and Hendrickson got leverage. The Bengals know they need a above-average defensive end to fill the hole. Hendrickson's like, look, I'm going to charge a little more. You need me. And what's also interesting about Hendrickson, a lot of other teams like the Browns and Vikings were on him, but only the Bengals we were told by national reporters that there was interest from both sides, and we didn't hear that about the other teams in on him. I was also curious, what is bringing him to the Bengals? Is it Joe Burrow, perhaps, as he was obviously in New Orleans where Joe Burrow went crazy, and obviously Joe Burrow is one of the best young quarterbacks in the game currently. Or maybe he was just getting offered the most money by them, which can be hard to believe. But clearly it seemed he had more interest in us than other teams. So kind of like you said earlier, that's something we're may learn about in the upcoming weeks. But though Lawson's the better deal for the Jets, I think it's safe to say the Bengals originally probably didn't offer Lawson that $15 million per year. He accepts the deal with the Jets. They get desperate. They know they need to make a move or else they are completely screwed. So I think Bengals did overpay, but that's free agency. We have Joe Burrow on the rookie contract. and it's definitely much better than putting Sam Hubbard and Khalid Kareem as your two defensive ends.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Personally, I also agree with the fact that, we did overpay, but personally, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about Trey Hendrickson keeping up his success here in Cincinnati. You mentioned I think that Hendrickson has the ability, he's been a consistent performer for New Orleans, and this year was really kind of the year where he really took off, and those performance kind of translated into, big sack numbers. So I think the Bengals made the right decision in the end. With what they had, I think they made the right decision in the end. Maybe, 3 hours ago, this may not have been the right decision, but now, now that Lawson was off the table, you had to sign another guy that, could get pressure on the quarterback, because it was one of our areas of significant need. And, we went after it and attacked it. And also we can, tell you live now that, it seems like the Bengals are looking at cornerback Mike Hilton from the Steelers. It'd be very interesting, trying to keep that cornerback in the AFC North. But if we're going to switch the conversation to the secondary, personally, I think priority number one tomorrow has to be re-signing cornerback William Jackson III, especially now that Carl Lawson is off of the Bengals books. I think that the Bengals should now have the money to re-sign William Jackson III. He's one of the better cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback on the open market right now. But it seems like the market for his services among other teams isn't all that large. So I think the Bengals could maybe, just maybe, get a decent, money deal for both sides in. And, maybe the Bengals can re-sign William Jackson, and who is performing at a pretty decent level over his time in the NFL. He had a really, really high graded year, but I think back in his rookie year. Ever since then, he's always been a solid corner, and I think the Bengals need a guy to have that on the lockdown. Obviously, if you remember last year, we signed Trey Waynes. He didn't play it down this year for the Bengals due to a pectoral injury. So I think that the Bengals could have a pretty decent cornerback pairing if they can re-sign cornerback William Jackson III.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry if you see Ethan and I looking at our phones.
We are on Twitter right now.
A lot of Bengal stuff is happening. We're just trying to stay up to date. So you see us peeking over, that's why we're just not zoning out or anything. But yeah, I agree. Exactly. William Jackson should be the top option, but it would be pretty nice to get Mike Hilton out of the Steelers, have him play for the Bengals. Obviously, the Steelers' future is kind of bleak right now. The Steelers really haven't done shit in free agency. It's all but confirmed that Juju is going to leave, and I have heard nothing on Juju, which makes me sad because I want him to stay in Pittsburgh so Von Bell can light his ass up again. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, which at the end of the day, it's fine. But I know I was going a little off topic there, but it also is interesting that the Steelers have kind of been dead today. Obviously, they have much less cap, especially even though they restructured, Big Ben's deal. They don't have a ton of cap, but still, you would imagine a team like that where it's, I don't want to say Super Bowl window because I don't think that's realistic, but I guess playoff window is very limited for the next few years. So you think they would want to make the most out of it while they could, as they really don't have a quarterback in the system to play. So that's interesting. Maybe the Steelers are just going to try and sign some quality guys instead of some big names. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think either they can re-sign William Jackson, because they're not going to get both William Jackson and Mike Hilton. As you mentioned, Trey Wayne's massive contract last year. But we also have kind of lost talks with Mackenzie Alexander. He's currently a free agent. So Bengals do need to sign two corners. So if they can get the right price, and I'm not complaining, but overpaying for Trey Waynes last year really does kind of put a dent in how many corners they can sign.
Yeah, and that's, a cautionary tale when you look at that deal. I mean, we're yet to see Trey Waynes play a snap in a Bengals jersey. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him perform at the same level that he was performing in Minnesota. before he came to Cincinnati. And I think, he'll be good, but, we're yet to see any payoff on that deal. And obviously, DJ Reader was a huge deal last year, and he only played in 5 games before tearing his quad and him being out for the season. So really, in terms of depth, one of our best free agent signing was Mackenzie Alexander. He was a solid, nickel or slot corner who came in, did a good job, had a decent, I don't know, how many picks did he have? 2 or 3 on the year, I think, something like that.
Around that. Don't know it on the top of my head.
Against Big Ben in the, the famous Monday night game that we had, where he high stepped out of bounds. And that was one of my, he was having so much fun that game. And I like Mackenzie Alexander. I think he was a good player. I don't know if the Bengals will have the, financial flexibility to re-sign him. But we'll see what they do, because I think the cornerback position could be one that they target tomorrow, especially if these articles about Mike Hilton are true. And we'll see, free agency is a 24-hour sport. So we could see, deals come through at 2, 3, 4 a.m. because some guys are going to sped, some guys are waking up. It's a 24-hour process. So we could see deals happening super early tomorrow morning. We could wake up to a deal, or, as we're, kind of getting our breakfasts, eating our, kind of getting our day going, we could get these sort of deals, or we could be shocked by the Bengals spending $60 million on a premier pass rush prospect. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting.